Boothill is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters, and so far he's really unique in what he does. So today I'm going to share some really useful tips for our new Boothill mains to make sure you're getting the most damage out of him. Now just a quick reminder, if you do have any other questions or want some help with your Boothill or any other character, I do have a Discord server where we have a great community with plenty of helpful people. Anyways, let's get started. The first of our tips here, and probably one of the more important ones, is to disregard main stats on relics and only really look for break and speed. Boothill is really unique in that while being a DPS, almost all of his damage scales off break effect. Pride would have calculated Boothill's damage distribution to be 85.5% from breaks, while 14.5% is from his normal multipliers that scale off crit, attack, and damage percent. Now it's really important to understand break damage is only affected by two stats on Boothill, his break effect and his level, which you should absolutely get to 80. You can give him as much crit, attack, or damage percent as you want. These things are not going to affect the larger chunk of around 85% of your damage at all. Now break unfortunately is not available as a main stat on relics outside of your rope, but it absolutely can be found in substats. This is where the tip comes in. For 99% of the player base, the best way to get the most out of your Boothill would be to simply disregard main stats and just give him whatever has the most break and speed, while also trying to make use of 2-piece or 4-piece effects. The ideal scenario is obviously you have a crit rate body and a physical damage orb that just have a lot of break and speed. And if you do have that, you should absolutely use them. But realistically, for most players, if you just roll random pieces that might have HP percent main stats, maybe a different damage type, so like a wind damage orb, you're gonna probably end up with one with a lot of break and speed. And this off element or HP percent relic with a lot of break and speed is most definitely gonna outperform, let's say, a crit body with only a little bit of break effect in the substats. Just take a look at my Boothill. Both my chest and orb are HP percent main stats, but the substats are almost perfect, rolling all into break or speed. If you have a piece like this, I would highly recommend just using it. There's really not much reason trying to find a crit rate body unless you're really trying to squeeze out as much damage as you can. Boothill has a super high floor for his damage. If you give him absolute garbage, as long as he has reasonable amounts of break effect, his damage will be insane. But unfortunately, this does come at a small cost. If you give him really insane relics with a ton of break effect, you aren't going to see the same damage increase you might be used to from your usual crit scaler. Boothill's damage will go up a reasonable amount the more break effect you find for him, but 10 extra break rolls for Boothill isn't going to be as game changing as getting 10 extra crit rolls for your Imbibe de Lune. Now luckily Boothill has a different way to push his ceiling, which is our second tip, and that's to stack as much speed as you can. Since Boothill doesn't really care about a lot of stats, you can absolutely flood him with speed rolls without losing much damage at all. Boothill already has a really high base speed of 107, and he can easily utilize the 2-piece speed in his relics. His best light cone option, his signature, gives 12% speed, while his second best option, a 3-star light cone adversarial, gives even more at 18% speed. And then finally, one of his best teammates, Ranmei, just gives 10% speed as well. Assuming you're using Boothill with speed boots, 2-piece speed and artifacts, Ranmei on the team, and adversarial after killing something, you're going to be sitting at 168.38 speed. This is with 0 speed rolls in substats. Now, if you're optimizing for MOC, we have our speed breakpoints for cycles. Take a look at what they are, and honestly on Boothill, you should really be aiming for the higher ones. Now, to quickly address one thing about speed versus break effect and which one to prioritize, this is unfortunately going to come down to a case-by-case scenario, but most of the time, speed is going to be better as long as you're hitting your breakpoints, simply because more turns is more damage. For min-maxers who are trying to look at 0 cycles, you should even consider looking at the win set, as the action advance in the 4-piece can help you cheat out the absolute highest breakpoints. Basically, Boothill mains really capitalize on the fact that he barely cares about most stats and make him as fast as you can. Take advantage of the fact that this space cowboy can easily hit for 200Ks while sitting at 170 speed. Okay, those first 2 tips were a bit longer because they were really important, but for these next few, we'll keep it short and sweet. Following on from all that speed talk, we have 2 more tips that are mainly talking about playing with Bronya, with this one being playing 1 speed faster than her. Now, playing 1 speed faster than Bronya is not something specific to Boothill, but since it is hard to stack speed on our normal crit DPS, this was normally done at the 135, 134 breakpoint. But for Boothill, you can go way higher. I would honestly aim for a 160 speed Bronya and just have Boothill faster than her. Bronya is not going to give Boothill the biggest numbers you can get. For that, you'll probably need Harmony MC, but she's going to pretty much double your Boothill's turns, assuming you follow this tip and speed tune them correctly. Now, just a reminder, Bronya is only a good teammate for Boothill because of her action advance. Her buffs, once again, are damage percent, attack percent, and crit, which barely does anything for Boothill. So you really need to make sure you are speed tuning them to actually use Bronya as an effective support. This is going to be really reminiscent for our Blade players, but when you use Boothill's skill, he gets another free turn where he can still use his basic. In this turn, you can use buffs like Bronya's ult and the turn duration won't go down, so you basically get a free buff turn. Now, this isn't that impactful because once again, it is a crit and attack buff, but it's still useful if you just want to squeeze out some damage. Boothill is one of the best characters in the game to play with no sustain if you're trying to get the maximum damage. This is partially because of his A4 trace that reduces damage from people outside of his standoff, but he does take more damage from the enemy he is dueling, so it kinda trades off. More importantly though, since Boothill doesn't care about main stats for his orb and chest, you might be running one that has HP percent or defense as a main stat, so there's a good chance that Boothill's going to be tankier than your normal DPS. Boothill's entire playstyle is also just breaking enemies. If enemies are broken, they can't do damage, and most of the time, enemies don't recover after they've been broken because Boothill just kills them. One big part of Boothill's kit that people might be overlooking is the fact that his ult actually delays the enemy action by 40%. You can use this to push back enemies that have really annoying attacks and try and break them before they even get a chance to move in combat. You can also use this on broken enemies to delay them from waking back up, which is really useful if you don't have Ranmei to extend their weakness broken state. Because most of Boothill's damage is from break, he has a slightly different support cast that he wants to work with. So for our final tip, make sure you're giving Boothill the teammates that actually help him. Ranmei is his best friend. Weakness break efficiency, break effect buffs, and delaying their weakness broken state is exactly what Boothill is looking for. Characters that shred defense like Pella and Silverwolf are also really good simply because Def Shred is one of the few things that will actually significantly impact break damage. Harmony MC is an insane support with him as they're pretty much tailor-made for break effect. Bronya, as we mentioned before, is very good as well, but not at all for her buffs since they're almost useless, but exclusively because of her action advance. Robin can also be kinda decent because she does have good personal damage and she does have an action advance in her ultimate, but normally I would only use her if you're playing no sustain and you're using her as a third support for Boothill. Characters like Tingyun and Sparkle, who've been dominating the meta for quite a while now, don't actually do much at all for Boothill, so make sure when you're choosing your teams, you're using the right supports with him. Hope you guys have been having as much fun as I have messing around with your Boothill, and I will have one more video lined up for him as I have been testing a lot of stuff, so look forward to that. But for now, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time.